everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jack's Literary Corner. So I'm going to try something new where I am going to review every two books that I finish. I'm going to do a review on them. So I hope this goes well, but I don't know because I'm not as eloquent and articulate as some of the booktubers I really enjoy watching, but I'm going to try and put in my best effort. So here it goes. So the first, I will say this, I'm going to preface it with this, these are not the first books I read this month. I read several other books before these books, but these are the ones I just finished. Okay, so the first book I just finished was Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson, and this is the first book in the Remnant Chronicles. This tells the story of Princess, I don't remember what her real name is, but she calls herself Leah. Princess Leah, and she is, as the first daughter, she is being arranged to marry the Prince of Dalbrook. She's from the House of Morgan. But of course, naturally, she does not want to marry this guy. She thinks he could be old and ugly. She knows nothing about him, and she wants to marry for love. So, with her handmaiden Pauline, on her wedding day, she runs away and goes to the town where Pauline grew up and they become waitresses at the inn where the woman who raised Pauline works. But unbeknownst to Leah, the prince, who is actually a very handsome young man, and an assassin have been sent to go after her. Or the prince decides to go after her. An assassin from a neighboring country, Menden, has been sent to hunt her down. And what's interesting is you do not know who the prince or the assassin is. Like the author, some chapters, what I really personally love is that this is a multi-perspective book. You have the perspective, of course, of Leah, but you also have the perspective of the prince and the assassin. But eventually, and there's even, when Leah and Pauline get separated at one point, there is actually a chapter from Pauline's perspective. So I hope they continue that in the second book. But you do not know who the prince or the assassin is, but you have chapters either with, where it's titled The Prince's Point of View or The Assassin's Point of View. And then you have some chapters where the two guys they end up in the town where Leah is, and they recognize her right away, and they give her their names, or they don't, not their titles or anything, but they give her their names. So some of the chapters are given actual names. So really, I enjoyed. This was a good first book. It wasn't like, oh wow, oh my god, this is the best book ever. And maybe that's because I've kind of expanded my reading horizons, but it definitely was a great starting point. It's very more domesticated throughout most of the book, but it does get exciting later on in the book, of course. I mean, what book doesn't get exciting later on, unless it's one of those books that, like, a lot of classics aren't always exciting, even towards the climax of the book. But, my only criticism of this book is that I felt like the author did more tell than show in the book, and maybe that's because it's in first person. Even when it's from different perspectives, it's first person of their perspective. That's the only thing I noticed. But other than that, this was a good start. This was a good... Oh no, you do not do that. Don't do that. Ugh. I don't like folded pages. Of course, I'm not gonna get mad at I'm not gonna criticize someone if they do dog-ear their pages, because it's your book, you can do whatever you want, but it does bug me when the page is dog-eared, but that was not my fault. That actually, I guess when I was putting it away, the page is gonna fold it or something. So now I have a crease there. I don't like it. But like I said, one of the things I loved is how this is multi-perspective. Like, in a lot of YA books, they're usually from first-person perspective, or even if they're not, like, written like, I did this, and I feel this way, and oh, I see this. There's from first-person perspective, which doesn't necessarily mean it's I. Just because it's not I does not mean it's not considered first-person perspective. I mean, like Harry Potter. No, I am well aware it's not first-person perspective, but it's not written in first person, but it's still first-person perspective because we are only from Harry's point of view. And the same thing with Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices, and I'm guessing that's with all her series. And I understand why, why authors do that, to make it very personal. Teenagers want to read books about characters they can relate to, and especially, and with fantasy, of course, a lot of times you have a character that's chosen, or they're discovering this whole new world, so of course, you want to focus on their point of view, and focus on how they're discovering this amazing world and beginning to piece it together and understand it. So I get that. I get why authors do that. It's just sometimes when I'm introduced to an interesting character, sometimes I want to know their perspective on the situation, not the main character's perspective. Like in the Mortal Instruments series, I'm always interested in the Lightwood siblings, like Alec and Isabel. I'm always interested in what they think and how they feel and stuff about the whole situation in the story. And actually, that's what's great about the TV show. Is it's from, because it's a TV show, they're also exploring all the other characters. They can't just focus on Clary in her point of view. They have to focus on all the characters because they have a wider audience. But anyway, this book is still in first person, but it's not. But we go back and forth between Leah and the two guys, which make it really interesting. And, because the two guys both start to kind of fall for Leah. And it's interesting to see how their struggle, because one of them is the prince, and he's, she kind of screwed him and betrayed him, ran away from him. But I think he does start to kind of admire her for being brave enough to make her own choice. And then you have the assassin who's supposed to kill her because she's an enemy, and there's this whole thing about the first daughters from Morgan, their country where Leah comes from, the first daughters usually have the gift of, I guess, foresight, or they know things, or they have premonitions. I don't know. I still don't understand what exactly it is, but, so, the people of Vendon are afraid of that gift, I guess. And the assassin is supposed to kill her because of that, but he can't bring himself to do it. He's really struggling because he's starting to actually fall for her and realize there's more to Leah than just being a snooty little princess. She's actually very down to earth and very, and she wants love, which is understandable. And, and she's willing to work as a waitress, So, but granted, she's doing it so that she can really go undercover and doesn't want anyone to recognize her. So, of course, she's going to be a waitress. But then, she's actually enjoying herself and wanting to learn all these new tasks and stuff. She's still, according to the guy, she still kind of has a bit of arrogance and haughtiness about her. But she's definitely more down to earth than they expect. And they actually start to like her. Like I said, they start to fall for her. And you see, when you go into their chapters and talk about, see things from their point of view and hear their thoughts, you realize that they're both kind of struggling with these feelings that they're developing for this young woman. And I think, it's things like that in books where I know that something's going on, or someone's trying to understand a certain character, so it makes it good so we can get their perspective on the situation and how they feel and what they're thinking. Instead of just, okay, this character looking at me really weird, or, why is this character acting like this, You actually understand why, you learn why these two guys are acting the way they are, and why they're saying the things that they say, and that they really genuinely are falling for this girl, for this young woman. Let's see, what else? I was going to say something else. I cannot remember what I was going to say. Oh, and there's also a bit of a subplot where you meet her brother, and something really tragic happens to her brother, and that kind of provokes her into action in the book. That kind of starts the I guess in writing terms, that would be the falling action, maybe, or the that gets the ball rolling, and that's when it gets really exciting. Is when this particular event happens, which is really tragic. It's really sad. I guess that's all I really need to say. Like I said, the only criticism is I feel like some of the writing was very telly rather than show. But this was a good starting point, and I'm definitely going to continue the series. I mean, I bought the other 2 books, so I'm definitely going to continue reading them. I do enjoy this, and I kind of like the whole idea of the princess running away and and wanting true love and everything, and standing up for herself. And actually, when I was a kid, I used to make up this game about this princess who kind of did a similar thing. I like to, act out, use my imagination and act out little storylines and stuff. And I kind of did a similar story, not like this one, but it was, a princess who saves all these, the people that her father throws in prison, and she thinks it's unjust and everything, and she breaks out some of these poor kids who her father throws in prison because they stole from, which, yeah, that's a good reason for someone to get in trouble or for there to be big consequences, but, I mean, he arrests them, and that's a bit extreme reaction, so, but that's just a little story I came up with. I would use, the swings as the horses they would skate on, and all our sports balls would be the food that they stole. It was just a cute little thing I came up with. But yeah, I like it. I'm definitely going to continue it. Okay, so the book I read after that was Home, a memoir of my early years. Sometimes it's hard for me. I don't read a lot of nonfiction because, I keep thinking it's going to be like a textbook and get me really boring. But I'm definitely trying to expand like I said, I'm trying to expand my reading horizons, so I've been reading some memoirs, and I have the John Adams biography from my brother-in-law, which I still have not continued with. I feel really bad because they're coming for Memorial Day weekend, and I only have one book to get back to them. They let me borrow one of my sister's books that she let me borrow. But books like that are going to take me a long time to read, unfortunately. It's not always going to be exciting. It's interesting, but it's not always exciting. But if you saw I did a gush video about Sound of Music. That's one of my favorite musicals, and I love Mary Poppins. So I decided one day I wanted to read Julie Andrews' memoir. So I finally, after lots of searching, I didn't find it at My Books A Million. And I don't think I ever saw it at the Books A Million it might have been there, but where I used to live, I don't remember seeing it there. So finally, and I was going to order it online, but then when I went to visit my grandmother, and we were at Barnes & Noble, I saw it, so I jumped at the chance of buying it. So the only thing is it doesn't go up to Sound of Music time. It only goes up to right when she gets is approached by Walt Disney and decides to do Mary Poppins, and that's where it ends. When her and her husband Tony, yes, not Blake Edwards. One of the things I learned from this book is that she was married to someone else before Blake Edwards. So her daughter Emma has a different father, actually. But it got to the point where Tony, and Emma, that's Tony Walton's his name. He was a set designer, I think, and a costume designer, I want to say. Or maybe just a set designer, I don't know. But when they are going to LA, and that's where it stops. So I really enjoyed this. Now, I feel like with memoirs, you have to, not everybody's going to enjoy it. Because, first of all, maybe there are some people that might not like memoirs at all, period. But it also depends on the person, I think if you're going to read a memoir, you got to read a memoir about someone you really, really are interested in, of course. And, a topic or a person that you're interested in. And, of course, like I said, I was very interested in Julie Andrews. And it's very, what's great, what I love about memoirs is it's a way to learn about your favorite, your favorite famous person or celebrity or whatever, get the intimate details without being too inappropriate or without being too stalkerish. They have chosen to tell their story with, because we can't, I feel like we can't help it but want to learn about our favorite actors, our favorite singers, our favorite reality television stars. We want to learn their stories. We just can't help it. You could argue it's human nature for us to want to know about these famous people that we look up to and we admire, or we enjoy watching them on TV or hearing them sing or, perform or whatever. So it's a very intimate way to learn about them, but by, without crossing a line or without seeming too weird or creepy. In this one, we learn about her time during, how she grew up during World War II, and her time during the London Blitz, and how even today, loud sounds, because she grew up around the bombing, really scare her. And so we not only learned about her career, we also learned about her childhood. Like her mom was a vaudeville performer, and she had cheated on her dad, and actually got married. So she had a stepfather. Julie had a stepfather, and the name Andrews is actually her stepfather's last name. So she ended up taking that as her, her stage name. And then she, of course, has a stepmother because her father remarries, and she has a lot of half siblings. So we learn about that, and then we learn more about not just we learn about the people that she interacted with, the people that became important in her life, in her career. We get, this is, a lot of this is devoted to her time on My Fair Lady, and it talks about Rex Harrison, and all the people who made that musical work and why it did so well. And she also shares how, if you know about her, you know that she eventually had to have surgery on her vocal cords and unfortunately lost her ability to sing the really high notes. And apparently, according to what she shared with us, that vocalization problem has been going on for a long time. Because with musicals like My Fair Lady, it was really affecting her vocal cords. And so she had to do a lot of vocal exercises and go to, vocal therapy to really work on her voice and make sure she didn't eventually lose her voice. Because she was straining it quite a bit because she was hitting a lot of high notes. Which is, it's kind of sad, actually. That she has such a beautiful, mature, beautiful, golden voice, but she still had to be really careful about that. And I like how it's written. The chapters are very short, so she's a good writer. She even has I know that she has a series of kids books that she wrote with her daughter Emma. Which I've heard of them. I haven't read them because I didn't read them as a kid, because of course when I was a kid they hadn't been published yet, they didn't even exist, and also I don't have any nieces to read to, and I don't think the stories that they wrote, my nephews would be interested in those. Let's see, what else can I say about this book? I just really loved it, and I definitely loved how intimate she got. And Miss Andrews is just such a very open, honest person and genuine person, and she admits to she talks about her friendship with Carol Burnett and how close they are, and how talks about that they did a series in '62, I think it was. They did all these variety shows together, but how even though they immediately have this connection and are super close, they don't get together as often as she would like them to. Let's see, what else can I say? Let's see. Like I said, it only goes up to right when she meets with Walt Disney and gets married Poppins. And next thing she shares about how she got a phone call in the middle of the night after she had her baby, before she had got to be part of Mary Poppins, and she got a call from the author P.L. Travers, being all like, I don't think you're good for the role. I don't think you're very good for the role, but I accept it, and I know you're going to be the part. So let's talk about it. And I remember if you've seen the movie, Saving Mr. Banks. I mean, I'm guessing that's pretty accurate to how P.L. Travers was. She was not really happy with the project, the movie, but Walt Disney had told her, you don't have any say in the matter. Which just makes me nervous, because if I ever do publish a book, if I ever publish a work of fiction, as much as I would like it to be, like, on screen for people, I would also be very apprehensive. Because I know that I don't think authors get a lot of say in a lot, which I think is a bad thing, because then fans will not be happy with that, because I mean, sometimes they get lucky and it does really well, but other times, that's why Aragon the other books in the Inheritance cycle did not continue on, because Aragon was not that great, considered a great of a movie, and it kind of totally went a totally different direction from the book. It still had the basic story, but I don't know, because at the time I did not remember what happened in the first book, but they said it totally went off, and, it did not follow the story at all. And then the same thing, I think, happened with the Golden Compass. People were not happy with the Golden Compass. And even Harry Potter, even though it got all the books became movies, it still wasn't, I feel like, having read Harry Potter, there's so much stuff that got taken out, and as the books got longer, again, a lot of stuff, the movies had to be condensed. The plot in the movie had to, be really, molded together, which I understand that, but at the same time, it's a little disappointing for fans, but then fans are, but I think fans come to expect that now. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here, as usual. Sorry. And let's see, and I like how, it talks about, she shares how, there were times when she got really emotional and she would admit about getting emotional because the director was really hard on her, or, she would get really emotional during certain songs. So I felt like I could relate to her in a lot of ways, and I feel like that's how I would be as well if I had pursued acting. But she does what all actors need to do, which is she persevered and kept going and didn't let herself fall apart, because with this business, you can't be, too sensitive. You can't be, I hate using this word, but it's the only word I could think of, weak. You can't just fall apart. You have to accept that there are people that are going to be mean in the business. And you have to be tough. You almost have to, harden your heart. You have to, get tougher skin in this business, and I feel like she did a good job at that. She survived, and she also stuck to her guns, and she didn't get involved in all there was not much of much scandal, except for, whatever happened between her and Tony Walton. I don't know. It didn't get to that far, so I kept wondering throughout the book, because I knew she was married to Blake Edwards, so I kept wondering, okay, when is that gonna? Not that I wanted them to fall apart or anything, but I was wondering, okay, so what happened between her and Tony Walton? Did he cheat on her? Did they just fall out of love? Did their careers get in the way of their relationship? Did something tragic happen to him? I don't know. So I'm very curious, and I definitely want to read more. If there's going to be other books that will talk about that, then I would like to check them out. Or at least I want to get a book that talks about the making of Sound of Music, because that is one of my favorite musicals, and I will watch that one on repeat, as I said in my Gush video. I think I did. So I want to learn more. So if it talks about that, if there is a book out there about the making of Sound of Music, I'm definitely going to buy it. Let's see. And like I said, I admit I was a little disappointed because it didn't reach the point of Sound and Music. But it did, like I said, we did get to the point where she talks about how she got chosen by Walt Disney to play the part of Mary Poppins, and how he gave them a tour of the studio and he took them to Disneyland, and just their initial meeting with Walt Disney and what kind of person he was. It talks about Camelot, when she did Camelot, and of course My Fair Lady. So it was, so if you're, a fan of the actress and you're into Broadway, then you'll probably really enjoy this book, this beautiful memoir about this lovely golden voiced siren of a woman, well, siren as in her voice. And like I said, I feel she's a very relatable person. So that's all. I guess that's all I have to say about this book. It's hard to criticize a memoir, in all honesty, because you feel bad if you kind of feel bad if you do. And I couldn't find any criticisms. It was well written. Like I said, I was a little disappointed that it didn't reach Sound and Music time error, but I did like. What's funny is there were moments where, a bit of a serendipitous moment where, like, there was one where she had a picture as Eliza Doolittle from My Fair Lady, and she was standing in front of a poster, and on the poster had the sound of, and of course, and she talked about how when she did when working with Carol Burnett, and how they did a parody of Sound and Music. And she played the mother. And she talked about how little did she know that she would be asked to play Maria. So I was a little disappointed there when it didn't get to, but it was still well worth the read. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, if you are interested in Julie Andrews and Broadway, then I would recommend this. So that's the 2 books I read recently. What books have you guys been reading lately? I am get back to reading Cersei and hoping to finish it by the end of the month, but I don't know. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already. And love to all my already subscribed people. And enjoy your reading. Alright, bye.